Hey guys, so I'm putting together the vlog for the 27th, and it's basically just Instagram compilations and some video that I took for the Ramadan Instagram account that I took over yesterday. And so instead of like doing two sort of competing videos, one for the vlog and one for that account, I basically have just downloaded everything from that account and put it, well, not everything, but as much as I could, and put it into today's video. So hope you all enjoy, but I wanted to provide some context. Bye. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I'm Soha. Welcome to Kentucky. So I just left the Human Trafficking Task Force meeting. We are against trafficking for Shelby County, which is the county that I live in, and it went really well. This is a meeting that I co-chair every month, and basically trafficking is a huge problem here in Kentucky, both in Shelby County, which is a rural area outside of Louisville, as well as throughout the state, partially because of the huge drug epidemic. We do education and outreach throughout the county. We educate ourselves as well so that we know what the latest sort of trends are in trafficking so that we could recognize them and teach others to recognize the red flags so that if they do see trafficking, they can call the national hotline. I'm also the co-chair of another task force in another rural county here in Kentucky, and we basically do the same thing. And one of the reasons I'm involved in trafficking is because it's such an awful issue. It's slavery in modern day America and throughout the world. Let me just back up a little bit and introduce myself. I'm Soha. I'm an attorney here in Kentucky, and in addition to being an attorney, I also am really involved in the anti-human trafficking movement. I did a gala for Derby Eve this year. And if you don't know what Derby Eve is, it is the night before the Kentucky Derby, which is a huge event in the Louisville area. We have celebrities from all over the world who come, and there's just all these crazy parties. And so I thought, let me throw a gala to benefit human trafficking survivors. The event is called Stop Traffic, and I'm hoping to do it every year to raise money for survivors and to also do like donation drives and stuff like that. You can head over to our Instagram page called Stop Traffic Kentucky. I will link it here. Well, I wanted to tell you all a little bit about Shelbyville, where Sana and I grew up. We've lived here for what, 22 years, yep. 23 years. I went to high school here, Sana went to elementary school and middle school here. We were, for pretty much our entire lives, the only Muslim family in Shelbyville. I was like the only hijabi person in like the entire county for years. I think we now have a few Syrian refugee families, Muslim families that live here, but for the most part, Shelby County is very white and very Protestant Christian. So as you all saw from my introduction, I'm an attorney. I represent workers who have been discriminated against, sexually harassed, retaliated against, things like that in the workplace. I'm also getting into educational civil rights law as well. Prior to me doing civil rights employment work, I worked at the Legal Aid Society, which is a nonprofit that provides civil legal assistance to low-income people in Louisville and the surrounding areas, so I litigated there as well. I've been an attorney for almost 12 years now. There is one other hijabi Muslim attorney in Kentucky that I know of. She and I are pretty regularly mistaken for each other, even though she's Arab and I'm Indian. A typical Ramadan day for me when I am fasting, she was not paying attention. So I will usually not get into work until like noon. My schedule is super flexible. No one here is policing my schedule, so I can come in whenever I want. I will come and go as I want. If I want to work from home, I can work from home. I try to make sure that I schedule things really outside of Ramadan. I've done one deposition this month and only gone to court once, so I have a lot of... So I just left the office and we walked across the street and we're at the Ali Center now. Well, we're in the parking garage of the Ali Center and we are about to go in, and I want to show you all a new exhibit.
Really nervous.
Don't be nervous.
So there are a couple of interactive places. We've got the theater, when you can visit religious buildings all over the world. And actually it might just be more than religious as well. There's a place where you can play music, you can write down feelings, you can do your name in multiple languages and learn how to say it and write it. And then, yeah, it's all interactive. You can touch anything. It's a lot of fun.
And this is Anne, who is Sana's BFF. She's also from Shelby County.
Yes.
And Did you say unfortunately?
Yes.
She left, unlike me. But yeah, she works here at the Ali Center, and she's letting us check out this exhibit about Muslim cultures near and far. So thank you, Anne. This is the Egyptian spices area. And Anne has a little story to tell us.
So there were spices on all of these, like cardamom and all of these other things. And somebody, I think a kid, broke one of the plastic tops and then ground the cinnamon up, so we took them all away.
And then what did you all do with the cinnamon?
I think we threw it away or put it into storage. I don't know.
We ate it.
Well, so this is just ways we can dress Senegalese.
Mm-hmm.
And there's all these cool fabrics here. As Sana said, these are maybe more for children's bodies. Not that I'm much taller than a child, but I don't think this is going to work for me. I could wrap it into a hijab.
Look at the baby ones. Babies.
Cute. Cute.
Very nice.
Yes.
Mohammed did lectures at various universities and smaller institutions. So these are some lecture confirmations, and these are some note cards from those things. And mostly what he spoke about was his religion and the reason for his conscientious objection, because students were so interested in that. They were against Vietnam, they were protesting. And so Mohammed was really just kind of a really uplifting person for them to listen to. So, but that's what he did for those 3 years.
And he lost a lot of money
Mm-hmm.
because he was at his peak boxing years.
Yeah, and I think it has on some of them how much money he made. It's like $1,500 for an appearance.
This is a photography exhibit called Shining a Light, and this year it was about refugee women, and there were entries from all over the world, and I got to be one of the judges, and these 3 photos are ones that we chose as the top 3. I hope you all enjoyed that mini tour of the Ali Center. If you get a chance, I definitely recommend that you come check it out. The specific exhibit that we were looking through, the Muslims around the world, that's going to be here until December, so you definitely, got time. I think a lot of people assume that because we live in Kentucky, there's not a lot of Muslim culture here, there's not a lot of Muslims, and certainly there aren't a lot of Muslims because there's not a lot of people. There's about 4.5 million people in Kentucky, but there are Muslims represented throughout the state. Okay, I'm here with Dad Syed. Say salam, Dad.
Walaikum salam.
And my dad is a volunteer here at the Greenhaven Muslim Cemetery?
Yes,
How long have you been a volunteer, Dad?
I'm here since we opened it in September 2015.
How many graves have people been buried in here?
Almost 60 adults and plus about 15-20 kids, babies.
One thing that people can't tell is that we're actually like in the middle of the city. We're in a residential area. Have you noticed anything, have you had any issues being in a residential area?
No, not at all. People are very cooperative from surrounding.
And you haven't had any problems with anyone getting out either, right?
No, never. That's never gonna happen here.
Right. So one of the things that the city has allowed us to do here is to not use coffins, so do a traditional Islamic style burial, right?
It is, yes.
So there's no coffin, right?
No coffin.
And the people are buried in a coffin, I think is the Arabic
It's called
word, right?
coffin. It's a white, they call shroud.
Shroud.
Yes. And that's wrap it in 3 pieces to the man, 4 pieces to the woman, by the like a traditional Muslim burial.
How you've been busy during Ramadan, right? Unfortunately, we've had a lot of deaths here recently.
Yeah, we have like 4, burial this week. 4 janaza we call it. Monday, Friday, Saturday, and Monday again, and we have to take care of the, funeral, burial, or janaza we call it.
Yeah. How many How much does it cost about to bury somebody here?
If people can afford it, they have to pay for the digging. That's about $600 to $700. Funeral home costs between 500 and up. And the people can use any funeral home, and they can donate for the maintenance of Kabristan or cemetery. We call it Kabristan for the maintenance. They can donate from like a 500 to 1,000 or any amount they want.
Okay.
So it's not set price here. We are not selling anything. It's for all Muslims.
And if the person can't afford whatever cost, like if the family can't afford it, the community has always taken care of it, right?
Yeah, like out of last 4, I know three of them taken care of by the collection from the community, and God, Allah give us a big heart in Louisville people to donate the money all the time.
And anyone can donate it. So
anyone can donate it.
Yeah,
Yes.
so if any of you all who are watching want to donate to a fund to take care of funerals for low-income people, send me a message. Okay.
Inshallah.
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 Thanks, Dad.
Yeah.
I brought you all to a couple of Muhammad Ali related places today because you really can't talk about Islam in Kentucky without talking about Muhammad Ali. I mean, you really can't talk about Islam in the United States, in the world, without talking about him, because he's arguably the most famous Muslim in the entire world. And he comes from right here in Kentucky, and this is where he's buried. This is the place that he called home, regardless of where he went in the world. And he's very inspiring to me because of his service to others, because of his commitment to social justice and civil rights. You can't talk about famous Muslims without talking about African American Muslims, without talking about Muhammad Ali, without talking about Malcolm X. And yet, when I go to the masjid, I see African American Muslims being treated differently. I see reverts being treated differently. And it makes me think about the beginning of Islam, when basically everybody reverted. People weren't born Muslim; they were reverts because they had to take the Shahada. And who were the first people to take Shahada? They were women who had no status in the society at the time, slaves, boys, people from low socioeconomic levels, from tribes that were known to, or were basically considered to be like criminal tribes or untrustworthy. So those are the first people who joined Islam. They weren't privileged people. They weren't doctors, and they weren't lawyers and engineers. They weren't anybody who we would now consider to be important. And yet, when I go to the masjid, those are the people who are given reverence. And let's just look at the history of Islam. That's not really how it's supposed to be. And I know all of y'all are woke, you're young, you talk about race to people, you stand up to injustice, you stand up against racism when you're in the masjid, at work, wherever. But do you all talk about race with your parents, especially those of you all who have immigrant parents like I do? Do you talk to them about race? Do you tell them about why the civil rights movement happened in the United States? I mean, my parents didn't know anything about that. They weren't born or raised here. They didn't take history lessons here, so they didn't really know about any of that. And when I spoke to my dad, for example, about lynchings during Jim Crow, he said, they do that to Muslims in India now. They lynch them. And he's absolutely right. And, we had this great conversation about sort of the path that African Americans have had to face in the United States from a history of oppression here, and the path of Muslims in Gujarat, where my parents are from, and how that's affected the livelihood of Muslims right now. And so we can have conversations about race with a lot of people out in the street, but let's start at home as well, because what comes from the home goes into the masjid, and if we can't fix our masjids in terms of the racial issues, then we as a people are not going to move forward.